I can go on with the class. Anything, any questions or any doubts or anything that you want to ask or any comments? Okay, I'm just assuming that you're understanding everything. You are able to hear me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So you have no questions and no comments or nothing to ask. So I will go over. I will begin. If you have any question, you can always kind of raise your hands and I will ask you questions. So, like yesterday we were discussing about last class we were discussing about social capital and cultural capital, because I was emphasizing that if you understand this, then we can understand this entire idea of caste class continuum in India, especially post independence India and just post colonial India, in the sense when British came in, and then afterwards when post independence India, this whole idea that class has taken over caste, how we should kind of interrogate it or kind of go more in depth to understand whether class has actually taken over caste, or we kind of there is a caste class continuum. And to understand caste class continuum, you have to understand this if you understand these concepts of social capital and cultural capital, etc., then you will understand this caste class continuum better, and maybe will kind of understand that it is not true that in India class has taken over caste. So, I have also, by the way, I have got some mails from some of you, and I will respond to you to it in by next week. I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that this week. Okay, so coming up to social capital, and I was talking about how social capitals are the network of social relationships that we have, and these social relationships are either by birth or are achieved. And I was explaining to you that how when you are born into a family or you are born into a group or community, how automatically you get certain kinds of social relationships and the capitals that those people have to you. Okay, how you use it, or you use it or not don't use it, or they let you use that or not, is a different question altogether. But we are just purely speaking in terms of what social capital one gets through birth by itself. Okay, like you may have a relative who is an IS officer but may not be ready to let you use his or her social capital or her power or her contacts. That's a different thing. But the thing that you are born into a family where you're related to people who are IS officers or doctors or lawyers or teachers or business people or politicians or etc., makes your social capital in that sense. Okay, so then there are achieved ones which I was talking about in terms of, if you are going to IIT, for example, achieve social capital, social relationships comes through what clubs we join, which colleges we go to, which jobs we hold. Okay, and like what kind of activities we participate in. Suppose you like to playing lawn tennis, and you enroll into a club that is not a football club, but it is a lawn tennis club. Then maybe the chances are that, given the fact that lawn tennis is mostly played by people with money, you will get more social relationships with people with money. Okay, so in that sense, there are different ways in which we also achieve social capital, and these are like some through education, through employment, through clubs we join, our interests. Okay, and deliberately also we kind of get into groups, etc., and meet people and try to build contacts through which we develop social capital. So basically, like I was explaining last time, the sum total of your social relationships are your social capital. Okay, any questions related to this? No questions? I'm assuming that you're very clear about it. Okay, okay, if you don't have any questions. So basically, the more social capital a person has, the more people would want to associate with that person. Okay, this is also very very important. Why? Because suppose imagine that there is your neighbor is a movie star, okay, or your neighbor is a big shot lawyer from Supreme Court, or supposedly director of an institute, okay, or a political leader or anything like that. So imagine the number of people that those who would want, because by being a political leader or a minister or whatever it is, or being a director of an institute, or a well-known film star, etc., or a Supreme Court lawyer or a High Court lawyer or a well-known lawyer in your area, in local areas, you yourself has so much of power in that sense. Okay, so many contacts, etc. But it is also true that when you already have social capital because of your own achievements, or you are born into certain things, or whatever it is, more and more people also would want to kind of be associated with you. So what happens is that the more social capital you have, because you are so connected, okay, because suppose you are a professor and you know ministers, you know doctors, you know lawyers, and you know engineers, and you know local politicians, etc., then what will happen is many other colleagues of yours or many other people around you also would like to be nice to you, and would like to build a relationship with you, okay, good relationship with you, because you have all these networks. Okay, so what happens is that once you have networks, it is more likely that you attract more networks, and you attract more, in the process you attract more social capital. Okay, so that's why I'm saying the more what social capital theory says is that the more social capital a person has, the more would other people want to associate themselves with you, and thereby increasing your social capital as well as their own. And basically they're trying to increase their social capital and their capitals, and therefore also in the process increasing your social capitals or your social network in that process. So if I have to ask you a question in terms of understanding of social capital, and then you and how kind of your lives, because you are in IIT, how your joining IIT, has it increased your social capital in that sense? Hello, are you people there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so missing the class. It's okay. So yeah. So I mean, is it clear to you? I think I can do one thing just to know if you guys are around or not. Just take your names and ask like school teachers, Ankit, you tell me, or Manoj, you tell me what did you understand, or Ashwin, you tell me what did you understand, something like that, maybe. So that just to put you in the spot, just to feel nice because you're not responding. So it's like very sadistic, but in that sense, just to kind of put you. No, I'll not do that. But yeah, in general, what like do you? If I ask you a question that you have joined IIT, and now that you know the notion of social capital, how do you understand? Can you tell me in some ways how your social capital has increased?
Uh, I think it definitely increased the way people treat with me, and uh, like now people like to interact with me more than they used to do
Okay.
previously before joining IIT, like that.
Okay, Meghala. Okay, yeah, thanks. That is one of very good example. Okay, so basically, what happens is in our local, given the fascination for IITs, and given the achievement that one gets by getting through IIT, the people who may not be giving in your surroundings, in your neighborhood, in your family, who may not be kind of giving you so much of importance, start also giving importance to you more or in a better way, because you are in IIT, and and that is a good example of how your value increases, and that also will actually become a cultural capital. When you're doing cultural capital, this is a better example for cultural capital. But yes, when you are in IIT, people would like to be connected with you because maybe their children are also preparing for IIT, or because the general value of IITs is so much that people would think that you will do a good job and all that, and so being nice to you is also matters and all. Yes, thanks for that. What are the other ways in which your social capital has increased?
Like we have I have contact of alumni
Yes, very
and
good.
for
Yes,
for for placement of campus placement and job we can
exactly.
approach them,
Yeah.
refer
Thank you.
them.
This is also a very good example. Actually, the fact that you have got into IIT is a cultural capital, okay? Because when I'm coming to cultural capital, one of the cultural capitals are institutional capitals, okay? But yes, this is a very good example. Both the fact that Meghalaya has said that people would want to be in touch with you, want to talk to you, will treat you better and talk to you better, and would like to be connected with you, increases your social capital. But also the one of the best ways of your social capital has kind of increased a lot in multiple ways, is that you have a whole network of IIT alumni who would make your access to jobs and employment and opportunities and ways of doing things, okay, much more better in terms of placement. In terms, if you did not get placed, also the information that you can get through, the access that you can get through to get employed, okay. And also, suppose for example, if I was thinking that you compare yourself with a person, you are an IITian and you compare yourself with a person who has done engineering from Assam engineering colleges, and you both are going to US. How is your life going to be smoother? Okay, in terms of many ways, in terms of networks and building of social relationships and settling down there and kind of growing in terms of your career, etc. Then compared to somebody who is in Assam University or Assam Engineering College. I'm just giving an example of a state in engineering colleges or sometimes. Okay, they also have their networks, but definitely the network of IITians are so much better. Yeah, because it was very good of bringing for you to bring that. Yes, Ankit, your mic is not working, so you can always write to me. You can always, I mean, you can hear me, right? I hope you can hear me. If you have anything to say, you can
Yes,
write
ma'am.
it. Okay. One second. I think he's writing. Yes. Okay. Fine. Okay. You can write if you want something. Okay. So this is how. Yeah. Who is it?
Ma'am, can you please elaborate the difference between social and cultural capital?
Yeah.
I'm not able to differentiate between them.
Yes, I have not come to cultural capital. I am just doing social capital right now. Okay, but I just gave in because give this example because the point that degree. Okay, that the whole idea of degree as IIT degree itself is an example of cultural capital in that sense. Okay, so I'll come to cultural capital right now. I just wanted to know if you people. Okay, I just wanted to know if you people understood social capital, or not, and more or less, I think you have got it, and we can make it more clearer. Can you people switch off your microphone? Yeah. So yes. So cultural capital is a sum total of your social networks, etc., which you are getting by birth or by achievements like getting through IITs or getting being a business, many such kinds of joining a club, etc. and all. I was just thinking in terms of, because we are going to do cast next. What I was thinking of is that. Um, if you have you heard in your own regional areas of community organizations like Marwari Mahasabha or Gujjar Mahasabha or Maratha community groups or Brahmin Mahasabhas and all. Coming from Odisha, we have all of these groups with, like, suppose Brahmin Mahasabha or Kshatriya Mahasabha and all those kinds of things. Okay, and of course you have Dalit communities coming together and forming certain kinds of Dalit groups, etc. Now, if you look at, if you kind of think of these kind of groups also, they are also the basis of a huge amount of social capitals. Like suppose, if I take the example of Brahmin Mahasabha, for example, given that most lawyers and judges, most judges, IS officers, doctors, engineers, professors, politicians, etc., come from Brahmin communities, like from many other communities also. I'm just giving an example here. Or for that matter, if I take Maratha community in Maharashtra, many of these community members actually occupy high positions in many places, or business communities, etc. So now imagine these Mahasabhas being present in your own regional areas, in your own states or linguistics, whatever state, in terms of Odisha, in terms of Andhra Pradesh, in terms of Delhi, in terms of Rajasthan, etc. and all. And imagine if each of these states have their own caste communities, caste groups, or certain things like that, and they have pan-Indian connections in terms of Brahmins, Mahasabhas, or in terms of Marwari Mahasabha or something like that. Imagine the social capital that these groups and the individuals belonging to these groups can have in that sense. And just remember this, because when you are doing caste class network or caste class continuum, we will be kind of bringing this in a lot more. For Meghalaya, I'm coming to the next community, next concept, which is the cultural capital. Now, cultural, Burdu was talking about cultural capital in terms of three different kinds of cultural capital. One is embodied capital, the other is objectified capital, and the third one is institutional capital. Now, what is the difference between social capital and cultural capital? Is that social capital is the sum total of your social relationships, okay? Whereas cultural capital is more about the culture that you have. Culture doesn't mean the rituals you do, or the dances and the songs, etc. But when it comes to cultural capital, we are more talking about what do we learn and imbibe within us in terms of cultural capital. Okay, as I go more and more into this, you will understand it better. But just for now, for beginning, just for the beginning, if you want to understand, cultural capital is divided into three types. One is embodied cultural capital, the second is objectified cultural capital, and the third is institutional cultural capital. Okay, if I have not given you the notes, I am sending you the links. You can get these terms. Okay, the first one is embodied cultural capital. Now, what is embodied? In the term embodied, you listen to the term body, right? So in that sense, embodied means what your physical, mental, psychological being is all about. What experiences you have, what kind of things you are exposed to, what are you socialized into, okay? Your entire environment, your entire milieu, okay? In the instance, how or environment doesn't mean the physical natural environment that matters, but mostly a social, cultural, political environment that you are born into, or that you have lived your life, that the socialization that you do, or are you the way you are socialized into, the environment in which you are socialized into is gets kind of embodied, gets kind of marked in the way you talk, the way you eat, the way you perform, the way you behave, okay, your mannerisms, your thought processes, okay, the knowledge that you have acquired, the skills that you have got, okay, the language that you speak, the way you speak the language. This is embodied in the sense the sum total of our experiences, social, cultural, political experiences that gets marked in us in terms of our mannerism, in terms of our lifestyle, in terms of our way of doing things, in terms of our behavior, etc., is embodied. Okay, what is embodied? Embodied is your experiences being marked in your body, in your physical, physiological, and psychological being. Okay, that is embodied. Okay, like for example, this is something of a different example, but I just want to explain embodied to you. Embodied means, suppose for example, we all feel that public space is a neutral space in some ways, okay? But do we all move in public space in similar ways is the question. Now, If I'm asking you this question, that do we move in public spaces in similar ways, you will think, why not? We just walk, we just run, we just, wait for buses and all that. But imagine you are going into a mall, you are from a middle class, upper middle class family or a rich family. You are going into a very posh mall where you need money to spend, and the clothing your matters, the way you behave matters. When you go into places like suppose for example you go into places like Domino's, or you go into places like MacD or King, Starbucks, and you know what to choose, what to buy and how to buy it. Okay, but there may be others who are also coming to the same mall, who may not be wearing the clothing that is acceptable in many ways, okay, and maybe shooed away by the security people, or even if they're allowed to enter into the mall, they may be very awkward and uncomfortable, and they may be looked down, or they're conscious of how people are looking at them. They don't know exactly what means what. Okay, what does a croissant mean, or what does a struggle, cappuccino mean, or something like that. So the thing is, your entire exposure, your socialization, this the your psychological, social, political, cultural experiences in the family you are born or group you are born embodies things in you, and you know how to behave in which place. Your mannerisms are different, your language is different, your way of doing things is different, your clothing is different, and that's embodied cultural capital. Okay, so what does that mean? What are embodied cultural capitals? Embodied cultural capitals are skills that you have. Okay, you can sing wonderfully. Okay, you can dance wonderfully, salsa, suppose tango. Okay, suppose for example Odissi or Bharatnatyam or something like that. Okay, or your knowledge that you have. And knowledge is what? Knowledge is not just what you get in schools. Okay, that also matters a lot in terms of cultural capital. Okay, but when I'm talking knowledge, suppose you are born into a family where your parents read a lot, read a variety of things. Okay, like for example, they read Dostoevsky. I'll just throw names at you right now so that you will know what I mean. Okay, so when if suppose in your family you have grown up reading Dostoevsky. Okay, you have grown up reading Khalid Hosseini. You have grown up reading Jane Austen. Okay, you are grown up reading George Eliot. Okay, you have grown up reading other Iranian English literature, Iranian literature, Russian literature, etc. and all. So what happens to you? You are exposed to a whole lot of things beyond your school. Okay, beyond your friends. Okay, and this is what will give you cultural capital, because in a place, elite place, or in a, suppose you are in my class. Okay, you are in my class, not suppose you are in my class, and suppose five of you have read Dostoevsky, five of you have read George Eliot, or seven of you when I say, suppose if I say Godard. Okay, if I say Godard, and you immediately tell me, oh ma'am, this movie of Godard or that movie of Godard. Okay, now what happens? We build a connection. And in the class also, not just that we build a connection, I maybe there is a chance that I will be much more tilted toward talking to you and building a relationship with you, and kind of an impression builds in my mind. But also the fact that you are talking about certain things that are exclusive, and other classmates of yours do not know that. Okay, that also can give you status and power in certain ways within the class, and that's your cultural capital. Okay, if the, suppose for example, if I said the language. Okay, suppose there are in your class, the questions some of you are asking, maybe because of the confidence that you can express things. Okay, this may be because of many different things, but it may be because of the confidence that, Ritas, I'll come to you. Maybe because it is of the confidence that that you have the language to put it through, and others may feel the same thing, and imagine the same thing, but will not be able to put it in the way you are able to express it. Okay, or for example, there is somebody who can give an eloquent speech in your class. Okay, in English, or in debate competitions and other competitions, in parliamentary debates that you have in your IITs, or other kinds of debates that you have in IITs, this person is able to very, very fluently and eloquently express herself or himself and kind of setting. So that language, okay, the language, the books that you read, the authors that you read, the movies that you watch, okay, like for example, if I say you to, if there's a gathering and somebody knows to how to play piano, and somebody just knows how to play something like very local instrument, I'm sure we all know where the cultural capital gets built. In that sense, who gets more appreciated in many ways than others. So this is basically what is embodied capital. Embodied capital is basically the culture, the social, cultural environment into which you are born, and how you kind of pick up those talents, those skills, those knowledges, those ways of living, like eating in with a fork and a spoon, or in terms of, chopsticks, okay, for example, in a Chinese restaurant, and then others who do not know how to eat it. How does that impact that entire business meeting, or how does that impact that very social but very impactful meeting in terms of your career or in terms of being accepted? Okay, so this is what is embodied cultural capital, and it comes in many different forms, and it shows in us the way we talk, the way we clothe ourselves, the way we kind of react to situations, the way we kind of dance and sing, and all those kinds of things. Yeah, Ritesh, you can ask.
Ma'am, actually, I want to ask if someone is genuine, like don't like to pretend or in more exaggeration way, you can tell so you don't want to show off. So is this not desired? Means is being genuine is not desired, or show off or pretending is more desired? I have doubt.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's not like, see, that's a different thing. One is can be very simple, not kind of do certain things which is showing off. Showing off is a very different thing, okay? But sometimes what happens, the way you talk, the way, and often, not sometimes, okay? Sometimes people show off, definitely, okay? Because of the class differences, or because they have certain kinds of talents, or they have certain kinds of gadgets, or certain, like if you have a car and you are showing off, or maybe it's the same car somebody else has and doesn't want to show off but just drives it to school because the car that they have is very good enough, and he or she can't help it but drive that only, and just not to show off by a small less costly car. So showing off is a different thing, but when we are talking about cultural capital, okay, we are talking about how you are socialized into certain kind of a way of doing things, and that comes out. Okay, like for example, what do you do if you have grown up in a family which speaks English all the time? And good English. This is like good when I'm saying good in quotes, when I'm saying the expressions that they have are very what is acceptable as a good English in that sense. Okay. What do? You naturally pick up that line, that kind of expression, right? Like for example, if you are born in US or you are growing up in US and you are coming to India and talking, you can't help but your expressions are in certain ways, right? Or for example, the way you clothe, okay, you cannot wear ragged tattered dresses, okay, because you don't want to show off. That's a different thing. Some people go simple and do kind of wear cotton and very minimal clothing and all. But what if in your family you have the money, you have the way, not just the money, sometimes people have money but don't have the cultural capital to dress up in a more acceptable way. So what they do, like the difference between, will you go to a very IIM kind of a meeting, or your alumni meeting, dressed up in your like colorful kurtas and color with lots of jewelry on you and all that? You may not go it. Why? Because culturally you are socialized at the thing, and you have the right kind of dress to go there. So you will wear that and go. Like for example, you will not go to a mall or a birthday party wearing all kinds of like kind of heavy clothing, and like you would wear to a marriage. Okay, so you're not pretending. It's just that you are socialized into that way. It's just your English is that, okay, or
But
it's just that. One second, huh?
excuse me,
It's just that if you have read Dostoevsky, you can't help it. You will bring Dostoevsky when you are talking about crime and punishment, or you're talking about, class and feudalism and all those kinds of things. That's not pretending. Yeah, tell me.
What what I mean, if I am like, I always speak in English. So if someone have the regional accent like I have, I know, but
Yes,
someone
yes.
is making fun of me. So I think
Yeah.
this should be like bad.
That
If
is
I am going
bad,
to some,
okay?
if I am going to a mall and you told this behavior is not accepted in that mall, so they are wrong. I'm not wrong.
That's
I
a
may be a
different thing.
more genuine.
Yes, yes, you are genuine. I'm not saying it's not about genuine. See, we are not talking about good and bad here. We're not talking about genuine and simplicity and what is better and what is good. What we are talking is that which is more acceptable, valuable, which currency, like I said, capital is all about currency that you can exchange. Okay, so we are not talking about good and bad. Yes, of course, good and bad is there. Okay, we should not be laughing at people who have regional accent, because everyone has it. Okay, everyone, our mother tongues influence the way we speak in some other way. Okay, and there's no shame in that. But that's not the question. The question is, if you are going into a Starbucks and fumbling over there to find out which coffee is what, and you are not able to express the right way of what the food item is, then maybe you will not be able to kind of impress upon the people there that they should serve you better. But suppose
So
somebody
we should
has that.
remember all things.
No, it's not about remembering. That
Like
is what I'm trying to
if
say.
if we will start going like first time we will not know, like we will try and experience, and the next time we know some name, and again next time we'll go, we'll learn more name. And if
Yes, yes,
we
that
are
is what is your cultural capital, because you have now access to. See, growing up, you did not have access to Starbucks, supposedly. But now that you're in IIT, you have access to Starbucks. You have got a job and you are now you're placed and you have access to Starbucks. So, what will happen? That you will now go and build your cultural capital, right? Like many people go to English speaking like courses, okay? Or many people go to, what is that called? Something something where they go and learn how to walk, how to talk, and how to dress up and all that. I'm forgetting. Finishing schools, okay? Finishing schools. Or you may go to, because the fact that you know that now now that you are in a certain other class, okay, and you have access to certain things, you should know what does the Starbucks menu involve, or the what does the Domino's menu involve, or what does other big places, okay, Hard Rock Cafe menu involves, okay. So you will learn cultural, like suppose Abhishek is telling me that, I think we can improve our cultural capital from our past experiences, irrespective of our class. Do you agree with this? I agree only with half of it, because yes, we can improve our cultural capital based on our past experiences, but we cannot do it irrespective of our class. To an extent, we can do it. Like for example, if you have a public library and you are interested in reading, you can go and read big people like J.S. Mills, or all kinds of authors that I can name right now. Okay, but and learn from them, and yes, you can improve your cultural capital in certain ways. Okay, but the thing is that in other ways, okay, in like for example, in places where you really need money to improve your cultural capital, the way you have to dress, the shoes that you have to wear, or the tie that you have to wear, or the way you have to kind of drink a coffee, or go to a big Chinese restaurant and eat with chopsticks. I'm not sure if your class doesn't have an impact on it. Your class has a lot of impact on that, in improving your cultural capital. To an extent, yes, you can. But sometimes, growing up in a certain situation makes it so much better for you to acquire certain kinds of cultural capital than not growing up in that kind of situation. One. Two, your class has to improve to kind of have access to certain kind of cultural capital. You can't learn piano without money. You can't play tennis without money, lawn tennis without money. You cannot go to Starbucks without money. So your class will matter. Okay, you will not know how to kind of, or if for example, you may not have access to nice, interesting Korean, Iranian, Japanese movies that are nothing like Bollywood movies in that sense, or Hollywood mainstream movies. Okay, unless you have money to buy Netflix or Amazon or other kinds of, other so many other movie channels, etc., which only show exclusively good movies in that sense. So your class matters a lot in terms of how you can improve your cultural capital. Yes, it's not impossible, but only to an extent it's possible.
Ma'am, but don't you think being street smart is also a sort of cultural capital?
Yes, yes. Being street smart is also a sort of cultural capital, but being street smart can take you as much, right? In
Huh.
compare somebody who is street smart and compare somebody who is sophisticated and knows how to talk the language and behave the way one should behave. Okay, we also learn behavior, right? Mannerisms, how to sit, where to hold your hands, okay, where to put your all those kinds of things. So yes, there are different forms. I'm not saying there's only one form of cultural capital. There are so many different forms of cultural capital. It is just what I'm trying to emphasize is that maybe being born into a certain kinds of groups gives us certain kinds of skills and knowledges and aesthetics, okay, talents. You may wear the same clothing, okay, but the way you carry it also will matter, right? So, in that sense, your aesthetics, okay, what combinations of dresses are you wearing? What combination of things that you're carrying, okay? Your talents, your language, all this, there are values in this. For example, if you want to impress your peer group and you are driving a bike and talking in a certain kind of what is called as a tapori language, it will give you certain kinds of networks and it will give you certain kinds of status, okay? But that may not help in high places, right? That will not help in a management institute or in an IIT in some ways, or in terms of getting placed or in a multinational company environment, right? So yes, street smart, being street smart is very, very, it's definitely a cultural capital. But where does it lead to is what the question is. What Vodou is saying is that there are certain kinds of cultural capital, okay, which one has, that leads to a certain kinds of social networks. Like for example, somebody is a very tapori kind of a language using talking in your class, and will you be wanting to be friends with this person more, or will you be wanting to be with a person who knows how to play music like a guitar, and reads great books, which are known as the great books in terms of English language and other kinds of things, watches very interesting movies, and talks about all that, all of it all the time with people, and has a very sophisticated way of life. In your class, where will you be friend? Who will you be friends with? And the question is, if you want to be friends with also, will that person accept you? If you do not have similar talents or do not show certain kinds or those kinds of kinds of talents to that person. So if you are somebody who is like, let me give you this example, okay? Suppose you are somebody who is interested in robotics, for example, okay, and there is another person in your class who is like A grader all the time, A and all that, and also is in the robotics club, okay. Whose cultural capital is cultural and social capital is going to be more than someone who doesn't know anything about robotics or is not interested in that, in the class, or did not have the social or a literature group. You're among you people also, so many of you like to read books and discuss about this, and take English as a HSS, literature as a HSS thing, HSS course and all that, okay, and all those things. So if you have read 10 different books of great European authors, and another person also has read 5 different books of great European authors and read 5 different books of Iranian authors and Japanese or Chinese authors, it is more likely that you both will come together, okay, and thus build your cultural capital than somebody who never had access to Iranian, Japanese, or English authors, but only read Indian authors and in Hindi or in their regional languages. Maybe you people will not show that interest to be friends with this person. Maybe, okay. Sometimes we look down on our regional literature and kind of keep ourselves very high when we know European literature or English language literature more, right? Our literature is also great, but we don't give that importance to it so much. That's what I'm trying to say here, okay? That, how embodied cultural capitals, the way you talk, the way you use language, the skills that you have, the knowledge. Suppose you are a music lover, and you go into clubs and performances of music and all, and being music lover is not class based or something like that. It is also very class based. Which kinds of music you get exposed to is also matters in terms of your class. Okay, which of course people go beyond classes and love music and understand music, okay, but not necessarily everybody has the resources and the cultural exposure to understand what a saxophone is, or how does a piano work, or what is Burduan, I suppose, how what is a Bedouin music from Southwestern Sahara, okay, but they will know all kinds of regional music in that sense, but they never had the access to kind of play music that is Western, or other kinds of music from around the world. African music, for example, is gaining a lot of importance. Maybe this person doesn't have that exposure to kind of imagine African music as important in their lives, and therefore will not be able to connect to different kinds of high profile music clubs and not gain cultural capital or social capital as such. Is that clear? Somebody else has written. Okay, yeah. So if this is clear, and we will get more and more clear about it as we go into the course, okay. So the next thing that I wanted to say is objectified cultural capital, which is very, very simple to understand. There is nothing, no, it's not very difficult to understand, because objectified comes from objects, okay, the material positions that we have, and in that sense, the car we have, the watches we wear, the houses we have, which colonies we have the houses, or which areas we have the houses, what kind of houses we have, the phones we carry, the clothing, including food, okay, or what kind of food we eat, organic food, inorganic food, okay, where all those kinds of things are objectified cultural capital, and that also kind of becomes symbols of our status and our power and our class and the influence that we have, and also attracts other kinds of social relationships, social capitals, and others. For example, if somebody has a very, very good car, okay, the attention to that person is sometimes so much more than to other people. Or, for example, somebody, the phones that we carry, why do we want to have an Apple laptop or an Apple phone, or iPhone, and all kinds of gadgets with us? So basically what Buddha is saying, that even objectified cultural capital also leads to certain kinds of currency. For example, if I have a car and you have a cycle, maybe I will have three more friends than you in the class, because people, I can give lifts to people in and out and take them to city and all those kinds of thing, and bring them back from airports and stations. They don't have to carry their luggage, etc., and all that. And the whole idea that the access to a good bike or a good car can make a difference to your friend circle is itself very, very important. So objectified cultural capital is very simple to understand, and I'm sure we have all experienced it in some ways, how the material positions we have can lead to certain kinds of relationships, or can improve our status in society, and therefore kind of becomes important in the way we exchange it for other kinds of social networks, other kinds of social relationships. The third one is institutional cultural capital, and I more or less have also gone through that in terms of social and embodied capital. But let me explain it to you. Institutional cultural capitals are more like the degrees that you have, such the institutional degrees that you have, which university you have passed from, which school have you gone to, okay, yeah, you have gone to very posh, a very sophisticated, high profile, residential schools across this country, and the alumni that you will build, okay, the cultural capital that you will get from the schools, like horse riding, like swimming, okay, like learning music, like reading best European novels, okay, learning a certain way of speaking, learning a certain way of talking, walking, eating habits, etc., etc. So your residential schools can make such a big difference to your cultural capital in that sense, and it comes from institutional cultural capital That means the degrees that you get in terms of the schools that you have joined, the colleges that you have joined, etc. More so when you come to institutional capital, institutional cultural capitals are like, for example, the value that that the degrees give us. For example, you are a IIT pass out or an NIT out or a state engineering college pass out. Are you a national law school pass out or a state law school pass out or a private law school pass out? Within private, again, there are different kinds of, you are pass out from a certain big private college law school, and or you are pass out from a very regional government college law degree. It makes a difference to your value, what value it comes with. So for example, if you are a national law school pass out or a IIM pass out or a IIT pass out, maybe you are at par with each other compared to other law degree holders, compared to other engineering students or management students for that matter. So this is what is institutional capital. Institutional capital, so cultural capital is three types: embodied cultural capitals, objectified cultural capitals, and institutional cultural capitals. Okay, and one of the things that you have to remember is that it is always true that one form of capital can be exchanged for other form of capital, or if you have one form of capital, it generally attracts other form of capital. And the base of it is that economic capital, any way you understand, I don't need to explain it. So for example, so what Boudou is arguing, that if you have one form of capital, it is more likely that it is easy for you to kind of exchange that form of capital for another form of capital. For example, if you have social networks, a big social network, it is more likely that you get a better job, or you have access to employment better. When you have access to a job, or you get through a job, a good job, your economic capital also increases, even if it was not better before. Okay, and once your economic capital increases, you can achieve cultural capitals: objectified, embodied, and institutional too. Because once you get into a good job, you may again apply after 2-3 years of doing a job. You may apply to IIM, and if you get through, man, you can or to other prestigious colleges across India or outside, and get more degrees and add to your institutional cultural capital in that sense, and therefore to economic and social capital in a sense. So what, as to end this whole discussion on cultural capital, when you are thinking of, see, often what happens, it is believed that, this whole idea of capitals are used to get jobs only in terms of government jobs and not in private jobs. But if you reflect and talk among your friends or your seniors and others, okay, you will find that even in private MNCs, etc., often cultural social capital matters a lot in terms of if you have access to job, and if you do not have access to job, or what kind of jobs have you got access to, what opportunities have you got access to, what kind of courses you took to get a job, who told you about it, and all that. So it's not always true that it's the state jobs or the government jobs which can be achieved through social networks, not just economic capital, but social and cultural capital. But often private jobs, private MNCs jobs, which is supposed to be corruption free, etc., in that a subtle network kind of always applies, and jobs are accessed also through cultural social capital, if not economic capital. But it is not true given the experiences of studies that has been done, and many of my friends come from MNCs, who did their engineering after sciences and all those kinds of things, and they tell the story of how the economic, social, and cultural capital matters a lot in who gets through jobs in MNCs also. Why am I telling this? Because when we're coming to caste and class, and how who got jobs and who did not get jobs, and why could they not get jobs, and why could they not improve their status despite reservations, despite that India is a free country and everybody gets good opportunities and right opportunities and it's supposedly equal opportunities. That is where it will matter. This forms of capital and understanding of how capital works will matter, not just in understanding how the good jobs were not only taken by upper caste largely in government sectors but also in private sectors. It was not necessarily true that those jobs also could not be achieved by the marginalized, the historically marginalized, because they did not have economic, social, and cultural capital with them. Okay, so when you go for an interview in your placement, there are certain things that impresses along with the talent of engineering or the skill that you have got through engineering, or sometimes is the other talents that impress more than the engineering skills, because they will anyway train in you to what they want from you. So this is why capitals becomes very, very important to understand caste class nexus. And we will, I hope you have understood this. I have sent you some videos. You can watch those videos, and you can always ask questions to me. I will not be able to answer your questions right now through mails, but I will definitely answer them next week elaborately through answering to your mails as well as in the class in that sense. Any questions? See, if it's not clear to you, you can always ask, okay? Please ask me, because I want you to be clear at this stage so that when we go ahead, it will become easier and you get into the spirit of the unit rather than struggle with these ideas, okay? So I'm emphasizing again and again. It may be a little kind of boring because I'm emphasizing it a lot, but I'm also emphasizing because, suddenly these things will again come up when I'm telling that, caste class nexus. I will explain you historically how caste class nexus operates in India, and how it is not true that there are so many Dalits who are, or marginalized groups, people, tribes, or Dalits or women who have not achieved so much, not because they're less talented, but because the social and political conditions were not right to give them opportunities, despite the constitution's guarantee that we will all have equal opportunities. So if you understand this, you will understand the historical process of caste class nexus, and it will become easier for me to kind of explain to you why we need to take caste into account even today, and how it matters that we annihilate caste, we throw it out rather than negotiate with it and accept it as a cultural institution. It is not a cultural institution. It is an economic, political, social institution which definitely bars certain groups of people from accessing resources in a much better way than they should have done historically. So yeah, if you have any questions, anything, just write to me, just ask me questions. I will address it next week. But yeah, tomorrow we are having a class as per now. If I'm caught up with certain kinds of medical things, then I will write to you. So no questions? Fine. Then I will end the class. You can always write to me. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.